Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As business attorneys for healthcare practices, we meet a lot of interesting people and learn their amazing stories. This season's theme is the future of wellness, where longevity, advanced weight loss solutions, and anti-aging innovations collide. Get ready for insights from the people driving the evolution of the medical industry.
Now, Michael, for anyone who might be our first-time listener on this podcast, where we talk about healthcare law very seriously, ourselves just serious enough to be dangerous.
Sounds like you're trying to do like a movie promo or something with that setup. I don't know.
Should I do a better movie voice next time?
Yeah, I was actually when I was picturing you talking, I thought if you had movie voice, it would have been
okay.
better.
I'll work on that next time.
Yeah.
All right. For today's opening, I'm actually going to set the stage here, Michael. Now, have you ever noticed how popular plastic surgery reality TV shows are, like Botched or Skin Decision Before and After, Extreme Makeover, Dramatic Transformations, Emotional Journeys, Chaos, Confidence, Redemption, all these revisions. You watch those?
I know some of the names you just said. I'm aware that there are a lot of these shows, so I guess yes.
Yeah. So
okay.
Think about this. Cameras are everywhere, and the unspoken lesson is always the same. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I feel like that applies to reality TV, medicine, and actually most of your wardrobe choices. So do you have a story somehow that ties to reality TV or cosmetic procedures or some sort of regulatory overreach?
I'm glad you asked, Michael, because yes, I do.
Oh,
so
movie voice.
So picture this coming next. All right, high-profile beauty contest that is televised every year. Judges have in their different categories. It's very serious scrutiny. The contestants get ready, perfecting literally every detail, aiming just whatever edge they can.
It sounds like you're talking about Miss America, which, I'll give you a little tip, Brad. It's been around forever. Or did they pay you to promote them this year?
This podcast is now sponsored by... No, we did not do that.
Okay.
Anyway, all right. Not Miss America audience. So the inspector started noticing that some of the contestants looked a little too polished, a little too enhanced. And it turns out several competitors were disqualified for ban for cosmetic enhancements, including Botox, lip fillers, hormone treatments, and even silicone tweets.
I actually know exactly what story you're about to say. I read the same article from the same publication. First of all, bravo for how you are so innocently presenting it. Secondly, I will not ruin the punchline and let you build it up like you have. But I do have a question.
Yeah.
Did they not read the rules?
Well, based on the shock from those who worked with the competitors, they did not. The judges were unimpressed with their protests, and ultimately 20 competitors were disqualified. And the lesson is clear. Botox, lip fillers, hormone treatments, and even silicone additions may enhance the competitor, but also deflate your chance of winning.
Nice use of the word deflate, Brad. Okay, let's hear it.
Michael,
what beauty contest was this?
Audience members, it was a camel beauty pageant. To be exact, the 2026 Camel Beauty Show Festival held in Oman.
And I actually did a deep dive on this.
Yes.
It is a shockingly big deal.
Yes.
I mean, the reason they're doing all this stuff is because it's so competitive and the prize pool is so huge. I mean, we're talking like millions of I don't remember what the grand prize itself was, but the prize pool was stunning for something I've never heard of, which was a camel beauty contest.
Yeah, and did you ever think Botox and fillers would be something that you could be used to enhance a camel?
Well, do you want my 13-year-old sensibility to answer that or a mature person answer?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
Okay.
What does this have to do with our guest today?
Well, Our guest today is the owner of Incredible Stories, and I thought he might be a good one. This could be a good one to add to his arsenal of incredible stories.
Well, I wouldn't go too fast. I would not be surprised if he has his own camel story of some kind.
fair. Well, he's also a surgeon, so maybe he has some ideas too. But and whether you're a surgeon or specialize in camel cosmetics, rules still apply, Michael. Which brings us perfectly to today's topic: medical board investigations.
Okay, joining us today is our law partner and friend, Dr. Jeff Segal. He is an attorney licensed in California. He also is a doctor. He went to medical school at Baylor College of Medicine in Texas. He is a neurosurgeon. Of course, his most important degree, as we've highlighted when we've had him on the past, is he went to undergrad at UT. He is the founder of a company called Medical Justice, which has eMerit as well. Wife, Shelly, Josh, and Jordan are his twins. He is a cyclist, scuba diver, climber, and truly, audience, you don't know how many stories Jeff has. And maybe that's why he is the 6th-time guest for our show.
Record holder.
Jeff, thanks for being here.
Wow, that's great. I didn't realize I'm a record holder. You'll be surprised to know today I have actually brought my camel.
I believe that. Well, first
in
off,
the back, waiting.
Yes. Are you familiar with the 2026 Camel Beauty Show Festival scandal?
First I've ever heard of it,
Oh.
but I am intrigued. Call me camel curious. I think next year you will find me in Oman trying to. Probably a spectator. I don't have an entry.
I want to see some before and after pictures.
Oh, you will.
Yeah.
Oh, you will, my friend. You will.
All right. Well, let's get into it. And we obviously, as we said, you've been on a bunch with us, but we have some audience members who may not have met you yet. So I'd love to give you the floor to talk a little bit about medical justice and what you guys do.
Right. So medical justice started when I was sued one time for a frivolous reason. I practiced neurosurgery, and the single expert who testified against me had actually been expelled from our professional society, American Association of Neurological Surgeons, for delivering frivolous testimony, yet he was still making a handsome living serving as an expert. I thought there had to be a better way. So fast forward, created medical justice as a way to keep doctors from being sued for frivolous reasons, and more broadly to address and manage thorny medical legal conflicts, including board of medicine issues and reputational assaults on the internet. So that's the whirlwind tour of who we are and what we do.
Well, that's awesome, Jeff, and thanks again for being here today. And for our audience members and for you, this season really are focused on wellness. And for those not knowing, when we say wellness, we're including longevity, weight loss, anti-aging, all those kind of come together. So as wellness has grown, it's really reshaping the interaction between how medical practice and medical boards are looking at these wellness clinics. Talk to us a little bit about what's happening with these clinics and medical boards when they're looking at these medical services being provided there.
Yeah, so historically, what doctors did was treat illness to treat problems, and wellness flips that script on its head. It's designed to promote function and performance, and with longevity, of course, to try and increase lifespan. But most people, when they think of lifespan, they're thinking of increasing health span. I mean, nobody wants to live decrepit and demented for the last 20 years of their life. They want to go out, as Hunter Thompson said, in a blaze of smoke. Not a well manicured body heading to the grave, but someone who's thoroughly used up and turns around and says, "Wow, what a ride!" So I think physicians have come late to the party. There are other individuals who have been focused on this, including exercise, nutrition. But now there are so many powerful compounds that are being tested, some not tested, that are available to promote health span, and they get a lot of buzz in the regular media and social media. The demand is high, and certainly licensed professionals are doing their best to fill that demand. But there are some cautionary tales along the way because medical boards mostly view medicine through a traditional lens, not through health span or wellness, but are you treating any particular conditions? No, that's important. What types of claims are you making? Are you making claims that it definitely will make you live longer? Are you making claims that various conditions, chronic conditions that you may have, will be reversed? These are the types of marketing hyperbolic claims that put you on the radar of a medical board. And no less important, medical board gets interested when there's a complaint. They're generally they're busy. They're not scouting the media looking to beat up a practice, but it's often complaint driven. The complaint may originate from a patient who has been charged a lot of money and didn't get what they believed they were going to get. So lots to unpack there, but that is the changing paradigm that we are living through right now.
So if someone was saying, "Come here and you use our product and you can live forever," and they die, is that a bad like promotion?
That is a bad promotion.
Okay.
I would suggest one should be subtle in terms of the claims you are making. I mean, the truth is that anybody who watches television will see plenty of supplements being sold, and it may make no claim. I mean, wink, wink. There are claims being made that you'll be healthier by doing it, but the background noise is that the supplement is not designed to diagnose or treat anything, which is a practice of medicine. So we've been living in that world. Those are oral supplements that we're talking about, and there's a multi-gazillion dollar industry on using oral supplements. But now we're marching into a different domain, which is not just oral supplements to promote health, but injectable supplements, and that is a different fork in the road.
It seems like that's a great point. Just the regulatory difference between the supplement industry and what is, to your point, the medical industry. And I'm thinking back like 15, 20 years ago, there was a movement that didn't seem to, I guess, really take hold with human growth hormones and other types of quote anti-aging type things, and it kind of, from my perspective, just kind of came and went. Like, I don't really have strong memories of regulatory enforcement and all that, but I'm curious if you had had anything happen during that time that would be something that could be instructive for risk that practices have now, that we do have this heavy demand.
Yeah, part of it is supply and demand. So human growth hormone was touted as a way I mean, our natural levels of human growth hormone fall as we get older. And the thinking was that if we could just supplement what we are losing, perhaps we get some of the health benefits. Early on, this is before genetically engineered human growth hormone, we got it from pituitary glands, cadavers. And there just wasn't enough to go around. The people who really did need it were those with congenital hypopituitarism, where they had short stature. And so there was a big uproar to take the limited supply and allocate it to those who truly did need it. There was a market indication for it. So it was heavily regulated. In fact, human growth hormone was one of those medications where a non-controlled substance, I believe it was and still is non-controlled, was regulated by the Food and Drug Administration. Normally, you know, healthcare is regulated by the state licensing boards, and what the Food and Drug Administration does is help shepherd drugs to market.
Mhm.
They oversee the trials for safety and efficacy. There's usually a sponsor for the drug. They intend to make money on that. They usually have an intellectual property position that they're trying to support. And then once everything's submitted through a new drug application, ideally, the Food and Drug Administration will bless it and say, you now have the right to market that compound for a specific indication. And so they go on television and say this is the latest and greatest drug for treating whatever the condition is. Now, that's the Food and Drug Administration. But doctors are free to use a medication that has been inserted into interstate commerce for any indication. They're not limited to the label on the drug. You'll hear the term off label. I don't think that's actually the right term to use. I think it's actually silent label. It just means that nobody has actually done the homework to submit a formal application to the Food and Drug Administration. But in point of fact, many physicians are using the drug in a silent label way, and it may very well be the standard of care. Let me give you an easy example. An antibiotic may have been tested on adults greater than age 18 and gets a marketing label, treats particular type of bacteria in adults. Well, does that mean that you, the physician, can not prescribe it to a kid? No, you could prescribe it to a kid because that's in the purview of the state medical licensing board. And as long as it comports with the standard of care, meaning others are doing it, it's perfectly clean. You can do it. So there's this distinction between what is FDA approved and what is allowed. There's some overlap, of course, but the story does not end there. If something is not FDA approved, that doesn't mean it's forbidden. The next question in that analysis is, well, what are other people doing? Is there any literature to support what you're doing? If you're the only person doing it, then arguably it's research
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not the standard of care.
Well, and Jeff, that's a perfect head, especially in this space with wellness. I mean, you were talking about basically, the term of art they use in the industry is on label versus off labels, which you were articulating. But right now in the wellness space, we're seeing a lot of people use unapproved FDA drugs, and they're using quote unquote, informed consents that the patient's agreeing to it, and they're just rushing to treat it by just saying, well, they signed a consent that they understood that this is an unapproved FDA drug. So going back to our, the medical board, how would a medical board view someone using an unapproved,
You're
not
talking about like exosomes,
Yeah.
no label.
no label, no label off? There's nothing. The FDA's
Correct.
never looked at it.
So put aside the FDA issue where you are potentially inserting a new compound into interstate commerce in breach of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. That's a different story because most doctors will not interact with that.
Yeah.
But the medical board would certainly often does take a position on this. You a consent form may help in some states where they allow alternative medicine practice. The consent form is the bare minimum. I mean, you need to have a consent form so the patient understands the status of it. It is the floor that you have to engage in. But in many states, that doesn't even exist. A consent form will not necessarily save you. And that's not surprising. There are some things that you just can't do. So, for example, if I want to turn you into my slave and you consent to it, um, the 13th Amendment does not allow you to become my slave. It is just forbidden. It doesn't matter whether you agree to it. That may not be a great example because I know you want to be you want, you want to be. So, but I do think that just because you have a consent form, that isn't the end of the discussion. And I'll give you kind of a broader example. Well, the patient knew what they were getting into.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't comport with the standard of care, just having the patient say they knew what they were getting into and it was not the standard of care, that doesn't save you.
Right.
I think it just suggests that you engaged in an activity that you're the only person doing it, or very few people are doing it. Now, um, if you want to engage in actual research, which the Board of Medicine doesn't necessarily oversee, um, then you can formally start a research project, which you would do it under IRB, Institutional Review Board, and they would evaluate the safety and that would come into the consent form. So there is research that can be done on compounds that have yet to be approved by the Food and Drug Administration. For example, what does Pfizer do when they are doing a phase 2 clinical trial with, let's say, a cancer drug? What's a drug that has not come to market and the patient needs to understand what they're getting into? It is a bona fide research trial. And the two bare minimums for a research trial is IRB approval, institutional review board approval, and a consent form. And for those who are participating, as physicians in these research trials, you need to have a specific type of professional liability coverage to manage that. Because your typical bread and butter med mal policy mostly focuses on the standard of care. But if you're doing research, that's not the standard of care.
Yeah.
You're trying to advance the science, which means you don't know what the outcome will be. It may become part of the standard of care down the road, but there are lots of details in there. So getting back to one of the high level questions, if you are going to do, if you're going to promote or prescribe compounds that are not FDA approved, I would certainly have a conversation with your carrier, letting them know what you're doing and to see whether they will entertain the risk. Because the last thing you want to do as an ER doctor is submit a claim for something that's never been FDA approved and then learn, you're on your own.
Yeah.
You hire your own attorney and good luck in your endeavors. And then they cancel your policy anyway because they didn't like what you were doing. Nobody likes a surprise. So these are some of the things you need to think about. Is the compound FDA approved for any indication? That's number one. Number two, how does your state treat some of the alternative practices related to compounds that are either not FDA approved at all or using it for a different indication? And then do you have any type of coverage to the extent you get a bad outcome and a lawyer decides to sue you?
Yeah.
So that's great. I'm curious, kind of to put a bow on this talk track that you've just gone down. So in light of this, and if a practice is thinking about adding these services and they walk through those kind of three big areas that you just summarized, what other steps, practical steps, would you recommend a practice take if they're looking to add one of these wellness services? So they're doing normal medicine, so to speak, right now, and then they are looking to add it. What advice would you give them to get started?
Yeah, so if you're warming up, I'd start with what is safest. There are peptides that are out there that do a wonderful job, but they're FDA approved for a specific indication. Let's look at GLP-1 agonists. They do so many different things. I would call them wonder drugs. Are they perfect? No, but they treat so many different conditions, and they also, in a way, promote wellness. I mean, I would call it, this may be hyperbole, but exercise in a pill. It's not a pill, although a pill may be coming out. But I'd start with what has been proven. We understand the safety, we understand the clinical outcomes. You're not really you're not over marketing by getting into that space. It may be crowded, but you are delivering a compound that has already passed the test with the Food and Drug Administration, and there's tremendous amount of demand for it.
Mhm.
So plenty of demand. Finding the business model would make sense. Number two would be compounds that have at least been tested in the past. They may not be currently in market. You may have to get them through compounding pharmacies, but that would be the next step where there is a track record. Perhaps they're using them overseas, and there at least many people have been exposed to it. To me, the most worrisome compounds are the ones that have limited safety record. We just don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
if the studies are just in mice, I would argue that mice aren't humans. And while there may be tremendous benefit,
Can you explain
you'd be
that to
better.
Brad?
I'm so confused by that statement.
Yeah, well,
He's
it depends on the type of mouse.
What about
Actually,
if it's a talking mouse? Because I've seen a lot of cartoons with talking mice. Are they not human either?
yeah, that reminds me of the dog that walks into the bar and he says, I'd like a beer, and the bartender drops his jaw. The bartender just goes ballistic or just is shocked, and the dog looks at him and says, "What's the matter? You've never seen an electrician before?"
And audience
Never mind.
members, there you have it.
There.
So
So if there's
going back to the
limited
mouse,
safety information, I'm not sure I'd start there. Now, you could actually do a research trial.
Yeah.
You could actually, but if you do research and you ultimately want to move it through, you got to have consent. You got to have an IRB. You can get a private IRB, but then you have to source the material. And I think the biggest challenge for physicians today is sourcing pharmaceutical grade compounds. If the packet comes in with a label that says research chemical for animal use only, well, we are animals, arguably. I'm not sure that's the type of compound you want to be promoting
Mm-hmm.
or much less.
because you don't know where it came from. You don't have any source control. And if there's a problem with an infection or an untoward effect, or just that the patient is getting what you believe they're getting, I think you'll burn. I don't think that's going to be supportable.
Okay.
Agree.
Thank you. I can't believe our time just flew by. Thanks for joining us for the 6th time on the Legal 1, 2, 3.
Oh my God, I didn't even have a chance to introduce my camel. I'm so glad.
That'll be in the 7th episode.
We'll go to
Come
break. After break, Brad and I'll do a quick wrap up, but it was really interesting conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto. I'm still here with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael and audience members, this season, we're focused on the future of wellness, and we just had a great conversation with Jeff Segal, Dr. Jeff Segal, on wellness and understanding how it impacts just your medical decision making, which is eventually impacts how you handle medical boards. And Michael, he talked about a lot of different things, but one of the things he mentioned more than once was IRBs. What are your thoughts on those just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I loved how he focused on the just the medical side of offering these alternative treatments, and so it was interesting. I do think that there could be for our audience members a little bit of maybe false hope of what an IRB can offer, because these review studies are pretty formal and a pretty big deal and not easy. I don't know if you want to give kind of a summary high level of what.
I mean, just in a super high level. First off, they're very expensive. To do them correctly, there's all these controls and other elements that you have to have. You have to sign through a process. So you can't just say, I'm quote unquote researching something. It's a whole application process you go in. It's the formalization of it. The study itself has to have different ways in which you can track it. So it's not just like, I'm going to research this in my next 20 patients that walk through the front door and then apply later on. This is not so. Jeff's point is you can do independent studies, but at the same time, it's through, an institute. So be very mindful that if that's a route you're doing, or if you're just giving it and they're consenting to quote research, but you're really not a part of research, your exposure goes up again.
They're super formal.
Yes, they're super formal. Great analysis. But Michael, unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. But audience members, do not panic. We are back next Wednesday when we continue to explore the future of wellness, when we bring on a good friend who will be in studio, Amy Anderson, discuss operating a successful wellness practice. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe, make sure to give us a 5-star rating, and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.